Icaza. Who was Jorge Icaza? He was an Ecuadorian novelist and playwright. He was born on Jan 10 in 1906 and died on May 26 in 1978. During his stay, he made several works. One of his most famous works was Huasipungo. Among others of his works are En las calles, Media vida deslumbrados, El Chuya Romero Flores, and Barro de la Sierra. A curious fact of Jorge Icaza is when he was 9 years old, he lived with his maternal uncle on a hacienda in the highlands. In the hacienda, he observed the sufferings that the Indians live under the dominion of their bosses. Also, he was an exponent of social realism. He was part of the generation of the 30s. It was a political generation. Jorge Icaza's work basically narrates the life of the Cholo, the Mestizo, and the indigenous. That shows Ecuadorian realism in literature. Huasipungo shows an interest in society, observing and describing the social problems and penalties suffered by the less favored social sectors. Jorge Icaza tries to express to give voice to those who did not have it.
Of the Huasipungo. Huasipungo is a novel by the Ecuadorian writer Jorge Icaza Coronel. The story takes place in Ecuador in the first half of the 20th century. It's a story that relates the exploitation that our indigenous people suffer. The story tells about Alfonso Pereira, who was the owner of an asset called Cuchitambo, the place where the story will take place, and Andres Chiriquinga, who is the main actor in the story. They say that he will face, together with a group of indigenous people, would not only face the abuse of their boss, but also a racist society, thus unleashing a tragic battle that would have a tragic end. The final paragraph, full of poetry, denounces abuse, oppression, ancestral suffering, and documents the desperate fight to finally end it. At dawn among the broken hearts, among the rubble, among the ashes, among still warm corpses, choked with slender arms like ears of barely emerged, as in dreams, letting themselves be cursed by the icy winds, skies moors of America, they murmured in an undulating voice of a dream. Ñucanchi Huasipungo.
Mr. Alfonso Pereira. He was a man of high society, owner of the Cuchitambo state, a state that he didn't want to go because he preferred to live in the city with his wife and daughter and to have a comfortable life, and not in his own state. Andres Chiriquinga. He is the main character in the novel that leads the resistance of Indians during the invasion of Huasipungo. He was an employee of the state. He was in charge of helping in the works together with his colleagues. They were exploited labor. The foreman had a very despotic attitude with the job they made. Julio Pereira. Julio Pereira was a powerful man, also a man of high society like his nephew Alfonso, who needed him money. Julio was a thick figure, bushy eyebrows, gray hair, and challenging-looking eyes. Miss Blanca. Miss Blanca was the wife of Mr. Alfonso and midwife of the church. Miss Lolita, daughter of Mr. Alfonso, got pregnant at the age of 17, and this became one of the biggest problems for her father, Jacinto Quintana. He was a bartender and foreman. He was a corrupt and an authority. He despised and mistreated the Indians. Butler. Policaprio is the butler of the Cuchitambo estate and Mr. Alfonso Pereira. Juana. She was Jacinto's wife, and sometimes had an affair with Mr. Alfonso and the priest. Gabriel Rodriguez. He was known as the One-Eye Rodriguez. He was a mestizo with a thick and definite look in his only eye, and cynical and hazel challenging when answering or questioning people. The priest. He was an adulterous man who through sermons was responsible of inciting fear in the Indians and took advantage of them to obtain economic gains. Kunchi. Kuchikinga's wife. She was submitted and psychological and sexually abused by the land owner Pereira and also by her own husband.
The end of the novel shows us that indigenous never had a chance to enjoy their lives as anything more than slaves. The death of all indigenous was very brutal and gruesome. The indigenous movement is composed structurally by the bases, the community groups, and the federations. In Ecuador, the indigenous has been a movement of social forces, to such an extent that workers, unions, and even careers, sometimes, by their own interest, that they shelter within this movement by the force it has. The history struggle of Latin American indigenous people for the land is not only about the recovery of a fundamental means of production which was violently expropriated from the earliest moment of European colonization, but also that the earth has a very deep meaning in the worldview and in the very form of existence of the people.
Es una obra muy buena debido a que relata hechos pasados anteriormente aquí en la historia del Ecuador y pues sobre la explotación de los indígenas. En tiempos anteriores existía mucha discriminación y explotación a los indígenas y les trataba, a las personas que estaban en un nivel de alta sociedad explotaban de forma laboral a las personas que tenían bajo nivel, bajo estatus económico. Los indígenas hoy en la actualidad estamos vistos como un estatus de nivel bajo económico, prácticamente como nos dicen indios, como pobres prácticamente. Y pues eso es, creo que nos dejó desde los años anteriores, donde el rico tenía el poder de controlar a los pueblos indígenas, a explotarlos de forma laboral. Y eso es que ahora, hoy en día, hay mucha discriminación del mestizo hacia el indígena. Y eso sería mi punto de vista, que todavía perdura hasta el día de hoy.
¿Y crees que el libro puede ayudar de cierta forma a concientizar sobre esta problemática?
Yo creo que sí. Hay que leer con mucha atención y muy bueno porque en el libro redacta hay unos episodios muy importantes, podría decir, porque relata que fueron asesinados más que todo al final por los militares.